Hello friends, welcome back another video. If you new here, first subscribe and share. And please watch the previous videos before you watch this. When he went to open the door, he found a young girl who could be nearly the same age as his mother, carrying a water jug and a plate of food. Exchanging food among the houses in Al-Jasasa village was one of the most established customs there. It was quite normal for the child to open the door and take the food plates and water jugs from off the threshold into the kitchen, without even knowing the identity of their sender. He took the water jug and the food plate from her. "Thank you," he said as he was about to close the door with his foot. "Wait," said the young girl. "I want to speak to your mother." When Jumana came, the girl told her that her mother was inviting her to join them tomorrow, as some of the village women would gather at their home. When Jumana asked her why they were gathering, the girl replied, "It's a regular meeting we hold every month," and she added kindly, "We've missed you a lot. It's been a long time since we gathered with you." In fact, Jumana had also missed her friends among the village women and felt the need to relax a bit with them. However, at the same time, she knew that her son would not agree to let her leave him alone at home while she went and returned. Therefore, she opened her mouth to apologize for not being able to accept the invitation. However, sensing his mother's desire to go, the child spoke up, saying, "Mom will accept the invitation." "Really?" the girl exclaimed. "Will you come tomorrow?" Jumana looked at her son in astonishment and asked him softly to confirm, "Will you agree to stay alone at home while I make that visit?" "No, I will come with you." And because she was afraid that he would cause her trouble there, she said, "I will take you on the condition that you do not create any trouble." "Agreed?" "Agreed." Thus, Jumana assured the girl excitedly of her intention to come the next day, unaware of what awaited her and her son. The following evening the gathering was filled with many women, surrounded by trivial chatter and endless conversations. The child sat beside his mother, fully committed to his promise to her not to cause any trouble. However, some women who wanted the privacy to discuss personal matters expressed their dissatisfaction with the presence of that boy among them. One woman said, "Why doesn't your son go play with the other boys?" Jumana turned to her son and whispered, "Go play with the other kids, little one." "I don't want to," he whispered softly in her ear. "I want to stay with you." To justify his insistence on staying with her, she told them that he was unwell and thus did not feel like playing with the other boys. So, the women had to engage in their private discussions that day, using a language they believed to be secret, but in reality, the child recorded in his head and understood every word he heard. During that visit, while the women continued their conversations, something unexpected occurred. The one with the red bird suddenly barged into the place without an invitation or knocking on the door to seek permission to enter. "I see there are many women from Al-Jasasa here," she said as she entered. Since they felt fear of her, none of them objected to her presence except for Jumana, who knew that this fairy had not come but for her. "I will return to my home," she said as she prepared to leave. Then, trying to lighten the atmosphere, some of the women attempted to keep her with them a little longer, but the one with the red bird took a seat for herself and, with a tone of voice as if she were looking for trouble, said, "Let her take her little fool and go to the latrine." Without commenting, Jumana took her son's hand and left the gathering, heading towards the door to leave, but she couldn't open or move the door as if many hidden hands prevented its joints from moving. She knew the reason behind this strange phenomenon. She wondered. "Let go of the door," she whispered angrily. "I command you to let it be now." "To whom are you speaking?" "There is no one here," the child innocently questioned as he saw his mother speaking to thin air. She knew what she had to say to dispel those hidden hands, which under the direct order of the one with the red bird prevented the door from moving. However, she did not want to speak to avoid drawing her son's attention to secrets he was oblivious to. She returned with anger to where the women were sitting. "Follow me." As for the one with the red bird, as soon as she saw Jumana return to the gathering, she said mockingly, "It seems someone has changed their mind." "You know why I returned," Jumana replied angrily. "The door is locked. Why don't you try to open it?" She said that and laughed loudly as if she had said something funny. When she found herself the only one laughing in the gathering, she became angry and ordered the other women to laugh. "Why don't you join me in the laughter?" The other women noticed the order and, out of extreme fear, they joined her, to the extent that one of them exaggerated and almost hurt herself when she fell on her face from laughing so hard. The one with the red bird looked at the child and cunningly said, "Why don't you go play with the other boys, little one?" Jumana shielded her son behind herself, saying, "You have no business with him. Let the boy answer. Or have you cut out his tongue?" She then repeated the question while looking at him. "Why don't you let your mother sit with the women and go play with the other boys. I want to stay with her, he whispered shyly, clutching her clothing. At this point, she said harshly while looking at his mother, your feeble son must mix with the other boys, Jumana, so he doesn't grow up to be one of the great effeminate men. She received that harsh address with great pain and felt she wanted to defend her son in any way, but she didn't know how to respond to her. As for the child, who felt the pain that the woman caused to his mother, he bent down to pick up his shoe sole. Hey, you do not speak to her like that, he shouted at her as he tried to attack her using his shoe sole. As for his mother and the other women, they attempted to grab him and pull him away so that the one with the red bird would not harm him. However, he was strong enough to break free from their grip and charge at her fiercely, trying to hit her with his shoe sole. Jumana shouted, please don't do it. The child stopped just 2 steps short of his target. No one harms you and escapes their act, he said without glancing back. The one with the red bird smiled as she looked at the child, for she saw in him the second sign confirming what she believed about him. His left eye turned a deep shade of red when angry. If he had looked at his mother at that moment, she too would see that frightening transformation in his eye, but he did not glance at her and kept glaring angrily at the one with the red bird. He felt a strange and intense desire to see blood burst from her, yet at the same time he did not want to disobey his mother, so he finally managed, after a long struggle with the beast inside him, to calm down. He took a deep breath, and his eye returned to its natural color. He put on his shoe sole, turned back to his mother, looked into her eyes directly, and whispered sharply, only for you. In truth, all of this had been orchestrated and planned by the one with the red bird, as she had hurled all those insults merely to test something within the child. She said, disregarding the women who were listening to her, I've told you before, Jumana, this boy is effeminate. I don't want to hear this nonsense. Jumana shouted in her face before she could complete her sentence. Then she grabbed her son by the hand and headed toward the door, attempting to open it for the second time. However, it was still sealed shut by those hidden hands. But because she, this time in particular, wanted to get out of there at any cost, she said without thinking of the consequences, I am Jumana, the daughter of King Jabbar, the emperor. I command you to move away and allow us to leave. As soon as she said that, the door opened of its own accord, heavy enough to resonate in the air with the words, accept our apology. When they returned home, Jumana looked at her son, and it was clear that he had many questions swirling in his mind, and perhaps this was also part of the one with the red bird's plan, as she wanted with her actions to generate questions within him so that he would know the truth and discover the secret his mother was trying to hide from him. In truth, the one with the red bird had succeeded significantly in piquing his curiosity, but Jumana, who knew well how to deal with him, knelt down to be at his height, placed her hand on his shoulder to make her words more impactful on him, then requested, albeit in a pleading tone, you will forget all the things you saw and heard there. But I want to know who King Jabbar is that you said you. Jumana interrupted his words sharply. I know you have many questions hopping in your head, but I want you to forget them. Agreed? Not before you tell me about this King Jabbar that you said you are his daughter, and about the voice that spoke in the air telling you to accept our apologies. I want you to tell me about that woman and why she was insulting you in such a way, and why you didn't let me hit her. I want to know why the door was barred even though the latch wasn't. She interrupted him again while looking into his eyes, and if I told you it was for my sake? It was hard for him to forget all those questions bouncing in his head or those strange glances the one with the red bird sent towards him and his mother. She looked at them with a deep love he could not rationalize, yet despite this, he was ready to do anything for his mother, so he whispered, saying, only for you. Jumana understood the importance of stories in refining and disciplining the soul, which is why every night for the past several years, she would tell her son a bedtime story, and when she finished, she would place a kiss on his forehead and tell him the closing line, which he always understood as the sign that the story was over and that it was time for sleep. Remember all your life, my son, that the Lord answers the call of the caller when he calls him. Then she would silence for a moment to ensure that line would settle in his mind, so he would not forget it for the rest of his life, finally saying, agreed? Despite the darkness of the room, he would close his eyes every time, analyzing that sentence in his small mind diligently, and once he understood it well and fully grasped its meaning, he would open his eyes in the dark and whisper, which call does the Lord answer, my mom? Yes, any call.